Welcome to the free audio rendering of Not Without Scars 2. Such an insightful and impactful work must be accessible to the countless number of people living similar life experiences. Becoming a best-selling author pales in comparison to creating a tool capable of instilling hope in a multitude of people trapped in the valley of decision. My greatest profit comes in helping others emerge victorious over their life struggle. My goal is to encourage individuals to follow their dream. My message: you must never quit on your faith, pursuing your aspiration or vision. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take a moment, invite your family, friends, and acquaintances and enemies to listen to this work chapter by chapter. It is free to listen as well as free to subscribe. Peace, love, and phenomenal blessing.
How do I write my life story? I know hurt and pain. I don't like either one, whether physical or emotional. Herein contains my story, Not Without Scars, Part 2. Optimism, perseverance, persistence, resilience. 2 decades of personal struggle. Optimism. I faced the new millennium with hopefulness. Perseverance. My ego, my humble beginnings, my desire to achieve never allow me to turn away from a difficult task. Persistence. Opposition should be anticipated as an effective strategy to victory surfaces. Resilience. Difficulties do not automatically spell termination. Scars reveal my imperfection as reminders of past episodes of pain, sorrow, or triumph. Scars can tell beautiful story endings or relay misery that wishes to remain anonymous. This work is meant to help others who have experienced decades of struggle. When struggles appear to never end, you must get through the night and face the challenge of a new dawn with fresh hope.
Section 5, 2014 to 2018, Not Without Scars, Part 2. Oh, darling, I'm so lonely without you. Can't sleep at night, always think about you. But if I had the chance to start all over, I would be wishing today on a 4-leaf clover and leaving you with the last thing on my mind, if I could turn back the hands of time. Oh, darling, I can't hold out much longer. Oh, the pain's so deep and the hurt is getting stronger. But if I had just one more try, I would be yours alone until the day I die. And we would have a love so divine, if I could turn back the hands of time. Turn back the hands of time, Tyrone Davis. Scar, a mark left on the skin or within the body tissue where a wound, burn, or sore has not healed completely and fibrous connected tissues has developed. A scar is the evidence that a wound has occurred. Something has been broken or injured has occurred prior to the appearance of a scar. It may appear as a disfigurement. A scar may reveal itself to be unsightly. However, the healing process reveals the sign of a scar. Scars reveal my imperfection. Scars serve as reminders of past episodes. Upon close examination, the evidence of a scar can reveal pain, sorrow, or a triumph. Scars can tell beautiful story endings or can relay misery that wishes to remain anonymous. Chapter 21, The Release. Introduction. The case manager called me into his office to inform me that I was being released 6 months early. All that was required of me was to produce an address where I would be residing. Excited. That would be an understatement to say the least. I eagerly rattled off the address where I would be staying with Jacqui and Madison. Well, you better check with Momma. She has to verify that you can come into her home, the case manager stated. That would not be a problem, I replied rapidly. You had better call Mama and get her to verify that you have a place to live. I have seen this play out so many times. You have been gone, what, 7 years? The case manager spoke sensitively, not sarcastically at all. Call and make sure so I can forward the paperwork. I hurriedly called Jacqui. I was really shocked. She felt that I should not come to live with her in Madison right away. This technically made me homeless. I had to go to a halfway house. At least Jack agreed to pick me up on the release date. The ride from Elton, Ohio to Cleveland, Ohio was not fun and laughter, strained at best. Jacqui did gather some of my clothing items. The key was that I could jumpstart my life. Freedom overshadowed any momentary discomfort. I was excited about my release from prison, but a lot of anticipated joy was missing. Instead of going home to a place to call home and share a bed with my wife, I was dropped off at another prison facility, the halfway house in Cleveland. Now I had to find a job and pay for being incarcerated. As soon as I could secure my own place, install a phone, and an electronic monitoring system, I would also have to pay the halfway house. This was not what I had envisioned as the way to start my fresh chapter. There were still some hurdles that I would have to overcome. Adjustment were to be expected. Administrative paperwork and staff personality were normal assessment. It was not a prison, and I was not one to violate these halfway house regulations. Navigating this process would not be that demanding. I had a whole world to navigate. I only had to learn the criteria of the halfway house in order to make their requirements to move on to electronic monitoring at my own address in the near future. Access to the phone would prove an important link in announcing to friends and the not so friendly that Reverend O's had survived and was now back in Northeast Ohio. Historical. Life is either a great adventure or nothing. Helen Keller. Freedom is a key to start. I had not been in a halfway house situation since 1989. My commission was to find a job. This also meant that I had to locate places to go out on interviews. It would be marvelous to venture around Cleveland and see that many changes that had taken place in my near decade hiatus. Cleveland Clinic had expanded. University Circle had become a little city unto itself. Street layouts were different. Missing buildings had been replaced with multi-story complexes. I felt a lot like the 16-year-old who got off the bus at the Port Authority bus terminal in New York in 1966. Fascinated. Transportation would be a key issue. I should state the lack of transportation was more of an issue. I had never taken public transportation other than a cab from the airport once during my entire time living in Cleveland. I had never taken a bus or the rapid train at any time. I had not been on public transportation anywhere since I took a subway ride in New York to retrieve my car from the repair shop in 1978. The counselor at the halfway house had the right instructions and direction for me regarding the public transportation access. Instructions? I had no idea what it cost to ride the bus and where you placed your fare. The numbers on the buses and the routes that took me were a foreign language to me. These were lessons that I never gave any thought to while away. My start to freedom began with learning how to use public transportation system. Wow. A humble beginning, it was indeed the commencement of a great adventure. I determined that where I stood at the moment was not the end of the Mark Carvin MCO story. For me, the trilogy of book, play, and movie were in the rebirthing stage. The tripartite of my life was seeking the fuel to restart my engine. I had a smile for everybody and a close conversation of everyone, a close observation of everyone and everything around me. I quickly realized that my analytical mind had kicked back into high gear without me having to flip a switch. Like everything else within me, it was only a matter of need and opportunity. The functionality still existed. Small and great, the challenges would be met, dealt with, and overcome. Some would be rougher to smooth over, tougher ones would have to be deferred to another time, but none would prove insurmountable. And of course, wisdom would dictate others should be avoided altogether. What I did have was my freedom. Without freedom, nothing could be accomplished or even started. Freedom to move about was the first stride toward peace, prosperity, and success beyond the captivity. Phase one was inscribed in my heart, freedom. I was experiencing freedom. I had fought and won the battle for my sanity in the prison system. Now, the battle for my mental stability amidst disappointments, doubts, frustration, and haters will reach a new dimension. Social, Black experience. The secret of life is to have no fear. It's the only way to function. Stokely Carmichael. Courage to think clearly. I admit to being a little apprehensive. Also, it was somewhat of an uncharacteristic nature for me to acknowledge a passive and overly pensive posture. My immediate plans were gutted. What I had to do to move forward had removed me from a position of strength. It had been quite a while since I had to call everyone I knew to ask for help. Bob Powell, a true friend for years, had visited me at Elton and made sure that each month I received money for the phone and the commissary. My brothers David and Douglas stepped in as I had expected. Chris Broussard delivered a check. My cousin Jimmy was also quick to respond. Longtime friend Gary Morton made himself and resources available. Then came the surprise, but cheerful contributors. John Malcolm, George Coulter, and Darrell Gaffney were among those who stepped up with computers, furniture, finances, and immeasurable spiritual support. There were others, and their contributions are not minimized by the non-inclusion of their names. Bishop Perry was a constant present as well. He ventured to Elton to visit, sent me funds while I was away. Upon my return, he drove me to a meeting that I had set up with Mayor Jackson. Bishop Perry insisted that I cut my dreadlocks. He felt that my appearance was too radical and threatening. I had worn the dreads while in prison as a vow I made to the Lord. I vowed not to cut my hair if he would bring me safely through the time of incarceration. God was faithful, so I had my freedom. Cutting the dread was not as significant as Bishop Perry had thought. Mayor Jackson had written to me while I was in prison. He had requested that I send him ideas that I had regarding the city's position to help returning offenders. So I was very confident that the mayor would not have a problem providing an employment position. I needed a job to secure my release from the halfway house to move into my own residence. The mayor provided employment. He called one of the commissioners into his office and got me a job cutting grass and cleaning vacant lots throughout the city. It was not what I had in mind, but it was a start. It would serve the purpose of getting to the next step on the long journey back. Bishop Perry was always one to put a good take on any situation. At least you now have a job. I was almost as apologetic as Bishop Perry. Perhaps he could move too fast with a better position since I was coming straight from prison. We both drove from City Hall in a somber mood. I had no fear of performing a labor job. No menial task would cause me to lament over how the mighty had fallen. I had the courage to do whatever was necessary to rebuild my life. I had to be a good father, grandfather, and man for all seasons. I needed my own place in order to think clearly. I possessed the courage to take whatever course presented before me. I had not given up any measures of who I was. It was only a little detour. I had all the manuscript to publish, programs to institute, and community issues to tackle. Plus, I would soon have a post-release supervision officer from the United States Probation Department to monitor my activity. Freedom was not completely restored. Limitations still existed. No matter, I was on my way. The journey of the rest of my life commenced with taking the first breath of freedom, the first taste of freedom, and continuing to breathe freedom, one inhale and exhale at a time. Theological. Bring my life out of prison that I may confess, praise, and give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me and crown themselves because of me, for you will deal bountifully with me. Psalm 142:7, Amplified Bible Classic Edition. Release from bondage ignites the ability to rejoice. There are people who I needed and with whom I wanted to reconnect that did not offer anything other than love, prayer, and respect. These values can be so important to keep the fire to thrive alive during sensitive and difficult moments when no one is around. Carlos Brown Jr. was one of those persons. He recognized me as I rode in a car down Chagrin Boulevard. If I had not cut the dreads, he would not have recognized me. Carlos's father was one of my closest friends. His sudden transition was painful years ago. I had remained close to Carlos Sr.'s family. Freedom restored a connection that meant more to me than silver and gold. Although I had a fairly long list of those who immediately displayed kindness toward me, the people who I had planned upon to assist in establishing commerce opportunities fled like I had the plague. Some had simply fallen upon hard times themselves. Others simply turned their backs. I actually recall one individual peeping out the second floor window like someone from an old Alfred Hitchcock movie. I found myself having to ask those who did agree to help me with lesser sums as I needed a place to live. Suddenly, I had reduced myself to that of a routine beggar in my own eyes. I was constantly having to ask small amounts of cash from people. Finally, I told one pastor of a ministerial group to keep his $100 gift. I was not hungry. What can you do with $100 gift other than get something to eat? As had been with me over the years, I had no trouble with the people who sat in the pews. They genuinely loved me. It was the leadership that I always had conflicts or disagreements. My release from bondage did ignite my ability to rejoice. I was able to surprise Madison on Father's Day 2014 at the church. I held my 14-year-old daughter in my arms and in freedom for the first time in 7 years. She said, tears of joy, what a perfect surprise. Father's Day got better for me. Dreamer drove me to the halfway house. I was with two of my daughters on Father's Day 2014. I experienced relief upon my release from prison. I could only foresee my fortune rising to an elevated level.